Are you stuck in life? Sure feels that way sometimes, doesn't it? And maybe that's a reality. Maybe you are absolutely stuck. Well, I want to talk about that today and maybe see if I can't help you get unstuck. So we've got an awesome quote here by Warren Wiersbe that I want us to look at. A little longer quote, but it's worth our time. So much good in this. Look at what Wiersbe has to say. Nothing paralyzes our lives like the attitude that things can never change. We need to remind ourselves that God can change things. Outlook determines outcome. If we see only the problems, we will be defeated. But if we see the possibilities in the problems, we can have victory. So love so much of this quote. And it's true. Nothing paralyzes our lives like the attitude that things can never change. We must remind ourselves that God can change things. And isn't it true also? Outlook determines outcome. So let's dive into this topic. See, can't we get a little bit unstuck, get some traction going in our life? So, first of all, the first line of this quote: nothing paralyzes our lives like the attitude that nothing can ever change. And I know this one well because, quite frankly, I lived in this mindset for many years of my life. As I began my journey of trying to change, not finding answers, not being able to, I finally reached a point where I was just resigned to the fact this was my lot in life. This was it. This is as good as it's going to get. I'm stuck, nothing I can do about it. And I lived there for a long time until truth came to bear. Thank God that truth came to bear. And I was able to learn a process, truth and a process that turned my life around, which led to what I do today. So there is a way, but I want to talk specifically about this mindset that nothing is ever going to change. If we focus only on the problems, we will be defeated. I agree with that. There are problems. And as old Einstein said, we keep doing the same thing the same way, expecting different results. That's insanity. But many times that's what we're doing. Why? Because that's all we know to do. We don't know another path. We don't know another direction. So the end conclusion many times is this is it. I'm stuck. There's nothing that can change, but it can. And it's worth reminding ourselves ultimately, God is the one who produces change, and He will guide us, He will lead us. Maybe it doesn't come as quick as we want it to, granted, but God is able. So I want to take some time today and look at the story of Joseph in the Bible. Now, again, there's no way we can cover this entire story. There's so much here. But very quickly, if you're not familiar with Joseph, verse 2 of chapter 37 in Genesis says this: these are the generations of Jacob. Joseph, being 17 years old, was feeding the flock with his brethren, and the lad was with the sons of Bilhah and with the sons of Zilpah, his father's wives. And Joseph brought unto his father their evil report. So right off the bat here, we got Joseph telling on his brothers. How's that going to go? What do you think? They're not happy. And why would they be? I mean, here's the brat little brother. He's the baby, and he goes running to daddy, telling them all the things that they're doing wrong. Has that ever happened to you? I was the baby, and I was good at it. I was good at telling on those other ones. And this is the dynamic of what's happening in Joseph's life. And as we continue to read, it says in verse 4, and when his brothers saw that their father loved him more than all his brethren, they hated him and could not speak peaceably unto him. Very interesting the way this is worded at the end. They realized daddy loves Joseph. He's his favorite, made him the coat of many colors, and they hated him. And it literally says they could not speak peaceably unto him. So life was not fun for little Joseph at home with his brothers, but it doesn't get better as we continue the story. Next verse, Joseph dreamed a dream, and he told his brothers, and they hated him yet the more. And he said unto them, hear, I pray you, this dream which I have dreamed. So I'm not going to continue to read all that. So Joseph has this dream, and he tells his brother that they already hate him, can't even speak peaceably to him, and now he's dreaming dreams about them bowing down to him, and he tells them about it, and they hated him even the more. Again, you know the story possibly. They eventually decided to kill him, but rather than kill him, they sold him into slavery. He wound up in Egypt. Great things began to happen. He became the leader in Potiphar's house. And then Potiphar's wife lied on him. He gets thrown in prison, spends much time in prison, interprets some dreams for guys while he's there. Don't forget about me, but they do. And eventually he shows up at Pharaoh, interpreting a dream for Pharaoh, becomes second in command in all of Egypt. Everything goes well for Joseph. But there was a long period of time when Joseph had every opportunity to get into self-pity and whine and moan and groan and sing that old hee-haw song, woe is me, gloom, despair, and agony on me. This is many times where we find ourselves just stuck in life, and it looks like nothing's ever going to change. But it did change. And in Genesis 50, verse 20, when the famine's in the land and Joseph is now second in command, here comes the brothers looking for food, and they feed him. And Joseph says this to them, but as for you, you thought evil against me, but God meant it unto good, to bring to pass as it is this day, to save much people. So again, the end of this story is an amazing story because the whole family gets to move to Egypt and live like kings because of Joseph. And Joseph forgave his brothers. A lot going on in that story, but my point is this. Joseph was stuck, or appeared to be stuck, for a long time before things turned around for him. So we've got to understand, even when we feel stuck, or maybe we are stuck, God's not abandoned us. He's not forgotten us. He is still at work. So we've got to fix our mindset and our perspective. Outlook determines outcome. So one of my favorite scriptures, and I quote it often, is Philippians chapter 4, verse 8, where Paul says this, finally, brethren, whatsoever things are true, whatsoever things are honest, whatsoever things are just, whatsoever things are pure, whatsoever things are lovely, whatsoever things are of good report, if there be any virtue, if there be any praise, think on these things. So it's really about our ability to focus our mind, to think about what we're thinking about, and choose and decide what we're going to think and meditate on. In those times, as our quote says, if we focus only on the problems, we will be defeated. But if we look at the possibilities, we can overcome. So we have to look for, is there anything in here, any truth, any virtue, any praise, anything? If there be any whatsoever, think about that. Look at that. Focus on that. And just continue to hold on to as much faith as you can muster that God is at work behind the scenes doing something. I'm telling you, so many times the test produces our testimony, to use that cliche. It's going through these dark, deep nights of the soul, coming out on the other side, getting unstuck, where we've got a story to tell. We have a testimony to communicate to others who are down in that pit. So our outlook determines our outcome. Let's think on these things. One more scripture here. John 16, Jesus speaking. Jesus says, these things have I spoken unto you, that in me you might have peace. In the world you shall have tribulation, but be of good cheer. I have overcome the world. Notice Jesus says, in me you might have peace. So peace doesn't come from my circumstances and situations. My peace comes from my relationship with Him. So don't allow the enemy to come and tell you because you feel or are stuck that God's abandoned you, God's forgotten about you, God doesn't care about you. That's not true. Peace is found in relationship with God. Jesus said, "My peace I give unto you. My peace I leave with you. In me you will have peace." In this world, you're going to have tribulation. You're going to have trouble. But don't worry, I have overcome the world. So if you're feeling stuck today in life, I want to encourage you to take an action step. And it's really a simple step, but it's simply this. I want you to do an inventory. In that Philippians 4 scripture, I want you to focus specifically on Philippians 4:8. And at the end where it says, think on these things. If you do a little Greek word study there, that's literally one Greek word that basically means take an inventory. So I'm challenging you today to take this action step. As bad as things look like they are, and maybe they are, I want you to consciously make a choice and a decision to take an inventory of things that are honest and good and just. If there be any virtue, if there be any praise, think on these things. Take an inventory of what you do have going in your life that you can be grateful and thankful for. Look for those things. Focus on those things because that's where the possibilities are. And if we focus on the possibility, not on the problem, we can overcome. Our Father has not abandoned us. He loves us. And there's truth that can help us continue to move forward, gain some traction, and eventually get out of those ruts and get unstuck and keep moving forward. That's what I've got for you today. So, yesterday, we talked about some things. So here's your buttons. Click or tap the screen to look at yesterday's video. And the next one coming up, we'll be back tomorrow for something else for you to think on. Bless you guys. Have a good one. Bye-bye.